Have you ever poured your heart into a project, solved a difficult problem, helped people behind the scenes, only to wonder, does anyone even know that this is happening? Not because you wanted recognition, but because you wanted understanding. There's a big difference. And one of our largest challenges in any organization isn't that people don't care. It's that they can only make decisions based on what they can see. And sometimes the work with the greatest impact is the hardest work to see.
3, 2, 1, yeah!
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Office Optimism with me, Sharala. This is a space where we create healthier workplaces and healthier leaders through practical strategies rooted in optimism, emotional intelligence, and workplace well-being. I'm so glad that you're here. This week, I found myself thinking about a challenge that I imagine exists in almost every organization. It started with a conversation about resources. Not enough people, not enough time, not enough funding. You know how that goes. The kind of conversations that many people are having right now. And as we talked, I realized something. The people making those decisions genuinely want to do the right thing. And the people doing the work really want their work to be understood. Neither side is wrong. They are simply looking at the organization from different windows. And that thought stayed with me because I think that we've all experienced it at some point. We've either wondered, why don't they see what we're doing? Or maybe we've been the leader trying to make an important decision without having the full picture. And that is where today's conversation begins. What leaders see and what they don't. Leadership changes your vantage point. The higher someone moves in an organization, the broader their field of vision becomes. And that is necessary. Leaders have to think strategically. They have to balance competing priorities, finite resources, long-term goals, and organizational risk, all at the same time. But there's a trade-off to that. The broader that your view becomes, the less detail you naturally see. Think about standing on a mountaintop. You can see miles into the distance, but you probably can't tell what flower is growing beside the trail. Neither perspective is wrong. They're just simply different. And that's often what happens in organizations. The people closest to the work see every challenge. They see every success and every conversation, every life that they've ever impacted. Meanwhile, senior leaders may only see dashboards, reports, budgets, and briefings. Not because they don't care, but because they can't personally observe everything. And I think recognizing that changes the conversation. Because if leaders are making decisions based on what they can see, then perhaps one of our responsibilities is helping them to see it more clearly. That doesn't mean making work sound bigger than it is. It means making the impact easier to understand. And interesting enough, organizational researchers have been talking about this for decades. When good work stays invisible. This idea led me to something that I hadn't really considered before. Maybe good work doesn't always speak for itself. Maybe good work sometimes needs a translator, not someone to exaggerate it and not someone to market it, someone to actually provide context, because context changes understanding. And this reminds me of something that organizational psychologist Carl Wick has written about for years. He introduced the concept of sensemaking, which is simply the process of helping people understand what's happening in complex environments. In other words, people don't make decisions based on facts. They make decisions based on the meaning they assign to those facts. Think about that for a moment. A leader may see a request for another position. But if all they see is a vacancy request, they may miss the real story. The real story might be, our team has doubled its workload, or we're struggling to meet mission requirements. Also, we're trying to prevent burnout before it affects performance. And those are all very different conversations. The request didn't change, the understanding did. And I think that's true for all of us. Sometimes we assume that people understand the significance of our work simply because we live it every day, but they can't know what we don't help them to see. Building a shared picture. That brings me to another piece of research that really resonated with me. Researchers who study high-performing teams often talk about shared mental models. One of the leading voices in this area, organizational psychologist Eduardo Salas, found that teams perform better when people share a common understanding of priorities, roles, and goals. I love that idea because it shifts the responsibility. It is no longer about convincing someone. It's about creating clarity. The best teams don't assume that everybody sees the same picture. They intentionally build it together. That has changed the way that I think about communication. Instead of asking, how do I get leadership to support this? Maybe the better question is, have I helped them to understand why this matters? Notice the difference? One question is about persuasion, and the other is about understanding. And understanding creates better decisions. Of course, this responsibility doesn't belong only to employees. It belongs to leaders too, because understanding has to move in both directions. Leading with curiosity. As you know, I talk about her all the time. One of my favorite researchers is Amy Edmondson, a professor of Harvard Business School whose work on psychological safety has transformed the way organizations think about leadership. She reminds us that good leaders create environments where people feel safe to speak up, ask questions, and share information that leaders may not already know. I think that's incredibly important because no leader, no matter how experienced, is seeing the entire picture. The higher we lead, the more we depend on others to help us to understand what we can't personally observe. And that is not weakness. That is what we call leadership. So if you're a leader listening today, I'd encourage you to ask one more question before making an important decision. What might I be missing? Invite people closest to the work into the conversation. Ask them what success looks like from where they sit, what obstacles they're experiencing, what opportunities that they see. Sometimes the most valuable information isn't in the report. It's in the perspective of the people doing the work every single day. And if you're someone working several layers below senior leadership, don't assume that they understand everything that you understand. Help them to understand. Translate your work into impact. Instead of listing activities, describe outcomes. Instead of focusing only on tasks, explain the mission that they support. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're helping people to make informed decisions. And here's your joyful point. This week, I want you to try one simple shift. Before your next important conversation, ask yourself, am I explaining what I did or helping someone understand why it matters? Then, if you're the one listening, ask another question. What might I not be seeing? Those two questions can transform the quality of a conversation. And if faith is a part of your foundation, remember the words of James 1:19. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Sometimes wisdom begins with listening long enough to understand somebody else's perspective. Let that steady you. We've now made it to the Office Optimism focal point. Here's the thought that I'd love for you to carry into this week. Don't assume that people see what you see. Whether you're leading the organization or serving on the front line, there is always more to understand. Healthy workplaces are built when people intentionally close the gap between experience and understanding, because clarity builds trust, and trust builds stronger teams. So as we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one final thought. Every person in your organization is looking through a different window. Some see the day-to-day details, and others see the broader landscape. Neither view is complete on its own. The strongest organizations are not the ones where everyone sees the same thing. They are the ones where people are willing to share what they see and listen to what others see. So this week, whether you're presenting an idea, requesting support, or making a decision that affects others, pause for a moment and ask yourself, Have I created understanding? Because understanding has a way of turning assumptions into alignment and alignment into action. Thank you for spending this time with me. I hope today's conversation encourages you to approach your work and the people around you with a little more curiosity, a little more clarity, and a renewed appreciation for perspectives beyond your own. Until next week, keep asking thoughtful questions, keep building understanding, and as always, keep shining. Bye-bye.